Hello and welcome back to OCD Coded. I'm Erin Brown, licensed mental health counselor and marriage and family therapist. I have OCD myself, and I really hope to help you to learn how to translate your OCD, to turn it into a superpower, and to take compulsions to compassion. And so today we're going to be talking about a type of OCD called information hoarding. And similar to memory hoarding, information hoarding is feeling like you have to collect all the information before, you get started, or feeling like you need to know all the information. And so this can look similar to ADD in that, that can be overwhelmed by having so many different things before them and not being able to discern what's the most important to get started with. And but then really feeling like there's just no end to the information that you can take in. And with, the amount of information that's available more and more each day, it becomes harder and harder because there is no end to the information you can get. Before, there was like almost a natural stopping point, whereas now it's there are so many different ways and different opinions, and it can be so hard to discern what's right for you versus what's right for others. And that's so much of the point of this, is that it's good to know and get information, but at some point there needs to be, that's the time to stop and transition into how are you going to translate it for you. And that feeling of over responsibility that OCD tends to have gets really in the way with this, where it's about, feeling like there's just this real deep responsibility to be the one to know the things and to not get it wrong. And that's a central part. And that for me personally, with my OCD, is a really hard part of it, is no matter what it is, my fear is I'm going to do something wrong. I'm going to make a wrong choice, and it's going to, have a negative impact and hurt somebody, or, hurt somebody's feelings and that kind of thing. And that I should have known better. And that idea that, and that's part of the obsession that of perfection, that I should know the right answer each time. And, and the older we get and the more experience we have and credentials or whatever it is, the more pressure it feels to feel like we should know the right thing to do. And so then we obsess about it so much. But then because of the obsession about it, then there can be a delay in action, or there can be a choice made based on calculations or rationalizations that don't really help, and that aren't based on the person's true intuition and that discernment between, OCD kind of urgency and that electricity feeling, and intuition is one of the main things that, I'm hoping to help with. And so as we, keep talking about it, we're really, we're trying to help with how to not just feel like where to develop your own starting and stopping points, that at some point you have as much information as you can, and it's time to move to the next step. It's time to get started. And for the person with OCD, that can be such a personal thing based on so many different factors. And so it's just, that's where practicing that pause and check in with yourself can be so important about, trying to. And then one of the ways I do it is about like, okay, pause. And if I feel like I need to go around this loop one more time and get a little more information, I will. But can I honor that this is the last go around and to give myself one more time to go around that, or spin in that hamster wheel, however you want to visualize it, that is helpful. And, that it feels, that OCD makes it feel so like urgent, or like it knows something, like if you just do it one more time, you'll figure it out this time. And how hard that is, because it feels so true, and how similar it is to other things like scrolling, where it's like, oh, the next post is going to be the best post and I'm going to miss it, or, just that feeling of I'm going to miss out, and how it relates to back to that FOMO and all the other pieces of it. And so many of the different types of OCD overlap, but that exploring each one individually can also help to give some insights into how it might be affecting your life. And one of the ways that I work with helping it is trying to develop a different kind of retrieval system. That information hoarding really feels like you have to keep all of the information at the front of your mind. You have to be able to retrieve it in a second. You have to have learned the lesson. You have to know all the things and keep it right there. And it's kind of like a memory palace, which is one of those techniques about, how do you kind of visualize a house with different rooms, and then you put like something in each room that helps you remember something along the way, whether it's a formula or song, or it could be so many different things, but that's one memory technique, but that you can also use for this. And that way with the trying to do these visualizations to retrieve this information, how, that if I look up a bunch of information about a thing, can I file it in my brain in a different way, and how that might help me. And to look at it as just, I have a different way of filing or a different retrieval system in my brain. And that, like, it doesn't mean it's bad, that everybody has their own way of doing it. And that the whole goal is there are similarities about it, but ultimately each person will find how to tweak it or make it work for them specifically. And one of the other things I think about with this is about, kind of the perception of time and how that plays all into this, and with OCD, and how and neurodivergence in general, there can be that time blindness, which is just a different way of perceiving time. And it makes me think of dyslexia, another form of neurodivergence where, the letters or numbers are flipped around. And so this is a different way of perceiving the world. But it's also knowing that can be such a good thing. And there's even articles coming out that show about with OCD that there's an increase in complexity of information processing. And I'll do the link to that article. It was a National Institute of Health article. And so really showing that part of it is there is a increased complexity of information processing, meaning an ability to process information in a more complex way. But that part of that is what is so overwhelming about it, or makes it feel like that, because there's an ability to process all this information. And I sometimes think of OCD people as like pattern people. And that's how I think of myself, that I'm always looking for patterns. I'm looking for, and I feel like I see patterns and I can't always put them exactly into words, but it's, but I can see something happening and I'm trying to alert other people. And that's part of the frustration and feeling misunderstood with OCD, is like, I'm like, I can see this thing coming and everyone's like, no, we don't. But then as like, it's a possibility I see coming. And so sometimes it doesn't come to fruition. And then that makes me doubt myself, and how with the doubting disease. But so going back to the idea about the perception of time, and also that, feeling of when time slows down, when you're in like a traumatic experience, and that idea that the reason it feels like time slows down is because you actually use more of your brain. Think of, we only use 10% of our brain, or however much they say now it is, but that, like, when you're in a traumatic experience or when you're in a life or death experience, that you use more of your brain. So it feels like time is taking longer because you're taking in more information with your senses. And that's what our senses are. It's information processing, and our brain is a signal processor. And so if we can look at it in that way, and without judgment of what we're processing and the signals we're getting through our body, but looking in them as signals and how much that can help. And so being able to think about that with information as well, that this is information coming in, and that we might experience in that different way, and that doesn't have to be good or bad, and that the goal is to, embrace looking at it from this different way, and be able to understand how other people can maybe look at it in different ways, and honor that, as well as honor our own way of doing it. And much easier said than done in so many ways. But that's kind of the goal of this, is that, pause and self-forgiveness of, this doesn't have to be something that's wrong with me. This can be something that's actually a strength if I can learn how to use it differently and use it for me, instead of judge myself, that judgment just makes another thing that I have to get over, or another thing that I have to cope with, another feeling I have to process out or calculate out, instead of being able to really focus my energy on my ability to see this complexity and be able to translate it, and how to be in wonder and awe more often, as the kind of antidote to all of the overthinking, is one thing that I'm practicing recently. So I invite you to practice that with me. Is, can we be the non-judgmental observer? Can we try and see things through a lens of wonder and awe, instead of doubt and fear, and allow the doubt and fear will come up, but can we also make space for the other part too? And that's my hope for you this week. And I look forward to talking to you more next week. See you then.